So, but normally when I'm communicating, I start with what I do. I love to be called a jailer. And this morning, we have 74,000 inmates, 742. Of those, 3,000, we have 74, they are male. 74,742 are male. 3,919 are female. Total 78,661. They are in 269 prisons, grouped in 19 regions, managed by 14,042 staff. So you know what happens there. But of course, every day we have additions and subtractions. Let's go to the next slide. I had prepared a small video. You can press the video. Is it working out? It has jumped.
The Electoral Commission is conducting an identification and mapping exercise of persons with disabilities, PWDs, on the National Voters Register in preparation for the 2025-2026 general elections. Village council meetings will be held countrywide from 4th to 13th November 2024 to update the lists of PWDs in your village or cell. At each meeting, lists of identified PWDs will be compiled to ensure no one is left out. If you're a person with a disability, whether already on the National Voters Register or eligible but not yet registered, please participate in this important exercise. This message is from the Electoral Commission.
And have a significant impact on the reputation, trust levels, and effectiveness of the performance. Effective communication plays a critical role in managing and mitigating crises by fostering a sense of control, building public trust, and steering the narrative in a way that aligns with public interest and organizational accountability.
But the gunmen were many from inside or the side of the prison.
How do you respond to that? That was a real public crisis. But for simplicity, because we come from different angles, we must understand that the public sector often deals with crises that affect wide segments of the population, ranging from natural disasters, health emergencies, administrative failures, corruption scandals, and service breakdown. Like that one was a service breakdown. Unlike the private sector, the public sector organizations are accountable to government and public, which means their stakes are higher and transparency requirements are more stringent. Effective crisis communication helps to ensure that these organizations respond swiftly, reduce misinformation, and provide the public with timely, accurate, and actionable information. That's what I was trying to pick on this, that when an incident happens, as an information officer or communication officer, don't hide under the table. Because when you hide under the table, there will be so many. Actually, while we are talking of 224, NTV Kenya was talking of 219. I think BBC was talking of 300. So it's up to you to come out in time. But as we continue, I'm going to show you why do you think I was the way I was? If you saw me, you see the picture, I'm like a beaten chicken. Because I am reporting failure. So the emphasis we put in crisis communication, or what we call the core principles, is one, transparency. Can you tell the truth? If 224 have escaped, yes, say the specific number and justify. Stop saying, I think about And maybe, perhaps it was. The moment you do that, both in body and word, then you know you are finished. Two, you have to be clear. And to be clear, you must own up. You see, I'm even mentioning the names of hills where I have never reached. So I had first to get the facts, so that when I'm communicating, somebody does not ask, I say, what is that? What do you mean? Do not leave the, what do you mean? Because this is a crisis. When you bring that, what do you mean? It means you are increasing the pressure on you and your organization. Consistency. One of the things that we are common on doing, especially as government communicators, is contradiction. Somebody comes up and says, there is an accident. My brother in the police, Oyesigiri, is always in trouble. Before Oyesigiri comes to tell you that 5 people have died, the constable on the accidents is saying everybody has died. So what is everybody? So there must be consistency. What you say today is what you should repeat if it requires repetition, and it should not cut corners. Then empathy. You see, crisis is negative. You have lost life. You have lost property. People have lost property. Don't come and start smiling. You know, by the way, the soldier was shot dead. Even one prisoner, I think, died. But it's okay. Now, and people read that on your body. Then they say this person is cynical. If you are lucky, they call you a liar. If you are not lucky, they say this person is heartless. Because that's why you see even the words going are very necessary. The work of a prison officer is not to kill. So when a prisoner died, you say he has succumbed to bullet injuries. But for the army, because they are out here, say we have put one out of action. With them, their doctrine allows them to kill. But me, even if it was a chase and somebody shot things, say, unfortunately, because the work was to disable. So you have to show a lot of empathy. Then too, it must be adaptable. You must be adaptable when you are communicating. That go to the ground. That's why you see me using the local words, not the Kampala words. I had to look for Karamajongo words. I had to akaramatize the people to tell them how the warriors have always been dangerous, how we are also as concerned as everybody. Because if you don't, then people will generate other stories from the crisis. Now, of course, the strategies, you know them. Effective crisis management relies on proactive planning, decisive action, and clear communication. The moment the crisis lands, I don't know whether that's what was done in Chitezi, but there must be an immediate planning.
The Electoral Commission is conducting an identification and mapping exercise of persons with disabilities, PWDs, on the National Voters Register in preparation for the 2025-2026 general elections. Village council meetings will be held countrywide from 4th to 13th November 2024 to update the lists of PWDs in your village or cell. At each meeting, lists of identified PWDs will be compiled to ensure no one is left out. If you're a person with a disability, whether already on the National Voters Register or eligible but not yet registered, please participate in this important exercise. This message is from the Electoral Commission.
It's true if it is natural. Even when it is prisoners, there must be communication. There has been an escape, mobilize, recapture. So you have to plan. And don't simply say everybody starts from anywhere. No. As an organization, you must first put your house together. I remember when there was that confusion at the airport. I remember there is even a time when we had the issue about money. how many pellets came on the plane, where did the other pellets go. Now, before the communication office of Bank of Uganda would talk, police had talked, media center was talking, and eventually it was all confusion. So sometimes that shows that the agencies, interagencies, are not connected and are not working together. And therefore, it means there was no plan to address the crisis. Now, for purposes of learning, these are a few things we have to do. Steps, or key steps that typically get involved in this. Preparation and planning. When a disaster happens, the first thing is to do risk assessment. If the escape has happened, how many are they? Before you start telling people, prisoners have escaped, how many have escaped? A vehicle has overturned, full of prisoners going for labor. Before you start telling the people, how many are involved? How many guns are involved? How many other outsiders are involved? So you need to do that risk assessment before you can do anything. Then, of course, naturally, you have to do crisis management plan. And incidentally, for us in communication, we are among the first, we are the foot soldiers and interested to have this plan in place. Because if you note, other people with them, they are not bothered. The journalists will not call them. Me, when there is crisis, these brothers of mine, they are the first to alert me before even my officer communicates to me. And because when I don't have information, I'm truthful, I tell them, please wait. Let me find out and get back to you. I am just buying the time to put my facts together. So don't panic because it's a crisis and you have been ambushed by these brothers and sisters of ours. You are at liberty. Don't say no. Don't disturb me. I am not ready. No. Say, excuse me. I am still assembling my facts. Let me get them. I get back to you. And they are so good. When you tell them they wait, say, how much time do we give you? And you say, give me a short time. Stop committing yourself. Because if you say 3 minutes, then after 3 minutes you must respond. So don't bind yourself. They also know, because their bosses are on their heels, they want stories. But don't bind yourself on something you know you can't answer. Say, please give me a short time. And when you get information, don't wait for them to call you. Call them back. Call whoever called you back and give him facts. Because that one will tell you a truth. And if you don't, they will tell their truth. Even if to you they are lies. Because you denied them the truth. Of course, it all depends. Normally when there is a crisis can't be handled by one person. So a team must be assembled. It is you to advise your CEOs not to wait until the disaster has happened. Quietly, let this, your CEO put in place, write an administrative instruction, putting up a disaster committee. So that by the time the disaster happens, those to address the disaster are already in place. But if you wait to make appointments when the disaster has happened,
The Electoral Commission is conducting an identification and mapping exercise of persons with disabilities, PWDs, on the National Voters Register in preparation for the 2025-2026 general elections. Village council meetings will be held countrywide from 4th to 13th November 2024 to update the lists of PWDs in your village or cell. At each meeting, lists of identified PWDs will be compiled to ensure no one is left out. If you're a person with a disability, whether already on the National Voters Register or eligible but not yet registered, please participate in this important exercise. This message is from the Electoral Commission.
My friend, time is money. You will end up having a lot of issues. Now, when the committee is in place, for us who put on uniform, there is nothing you will do without first practicing it. You must do the training drills before you act. You have seen these parades. Okay, it's not a crisis, but you have seen these parades on national functions. it takes us a full month of training before we exhibit. You have been reading, we go for these joint military exercises to see if there is a problem anywhere in East Africa, how do you go in? And the biggest part we have, especially when we go to the civilian side, for us, we want to practice as we deliver. When the crisis comes, that's when we're in action. No, you must practice what you are going to do before it happens. I can assure you it is the practice which we are going through about health epidemics that saved prisons when COVID came in. To the level that we got over 4,000 cases, but we only lost 3 prisoners and 2 staff. Simply because of what we had been previously practicing. Now, the next important stage is detection and early warning. You know, incidentally, most of the disasters, they don't erupt. Even if it is a volcano, there is a warning. Even if it is a disease, there is the first case. That's why I like the Minister of Health by sending early warning. They said this is a monkeypox. We have had the first case in the neighbors. COVID, it has started, it is already in China, has gone to Europe. That is early warning. And we should now start working the moment you really see that the wind is blowing your side. And that's why it is very, very important that you do monitoring and surveillance. You know, for us there, when you see an escape like that, massive, it means that the people on the ground lost out on surveillance. They lost out on monitoring. Because the signs are normally there. And symptoms. So therefore, it is very, very, very important for us to work on crisis, especially for communication purposes, to have our designs of detection and early warning. Of course, you have to assess the risk. Like if this thing which corrupts in Ichitezi, you can be a very good philanthropist. But if you simply run and say, let me go and pour out people, it will also cover you. So you have to follow a certain procedure. We used to call it Dr. ABC. You detect, assess, bisect, consult, then attend to the crisis. So if you don't, it can as well go with you. Now, the moment you have done that, then it means you must respond. All these things I'm saying them as if they are scattered, but actually they happen at the same time. If a prisoner is running, you are not going to first sit down, write a paragraph, then say, okay, how do I get this prisoner who has gone? So these things must be running in your systems. You must have the standby teams in systems. So, one, you activate the plan which is always on your table, which you are studying. I don't know how many of us have that, how many of us have the crisis management plan. If we check on our desks, there are very few of us who have them. We are only waiting, and the person they are supposed to ask is you, the communication person, because you are the strategist. Now, then too, anything you are going to do, what is your objective? When a crisis happens, it demands specific things. If it is Ududa, you are evacuating people, you are looking for food, you are... Now, but if it is prisoners, you are trying to catch them back, you are making sure you are minimizing the casualties of the public, you have to make sure you are involving the other stakeholders. So every crisis has its own objectives. So, but before you go in, you must first set them and then follow them appropriately.
The Electoral Commission is conducting an identification and mapping exercise of persons with disabilities, PWDs, on the National Voters Register in preparation for the 2025-2026 general elections. Village council meetings will be held countrywide from 4th to 13th November 2024 to update the lists of PWDs in your village or cell. At each meeting, lists of identified PWDs will be compiled to ensure no one is left out. If you're a person with a disability, whether already on the National Voters Register or eligible but not yet registered, please participate in this important exercise. This message is from the Electoral Commission.
Now, for purposes of cohesion, it is very important to do internal communication and coordination. You must be one person. Otherwise, you are going to contradict yourselves in front of the public. And agree. What does each one do? If you are a spokesperson and the media is Kampala, but the incident has happened in Kasese, it doesn't mean that you should be having a chopper, run Kasese, come back. No. This committee, the importance is that you must dispatch a team to feed you as you prepare the messages to communicate. So each person must have a task in this crisis, because crisis involves almost everybody. And sometimes, like you are seeing that paper, there are some people who look at crisis like it is something which can't be solved. They are careless on how they talk. They are actually with them, some of them are celebrating. It has happened. So you have to be very careful. You have to maintain cohesion. Internal cohesion is very important. And that can only be done if you continuously communicate internally. Then, the most important thing is that when a disaster has happened, whether you want it or not, please don't keep quiet. No matter what happens, if it is a crisis, you can keep quiet if you are celebrating the end of the year, no problem. Nobody needs to know. But when something that touches the public concern happens, you must be accountable. And accountability you can learn or you can do is to publicly communicate. Now, but communicate what? Yes, or we can communicate what? That's why you must carefully sit as a team and develop key messages. It is not every talk, it's not every communication that will save you. So you have to be very calculative. You must seek to say what I am saying should not injure the public. Yet unfortunately, every statement you bring out is like that picture. There is the ugly and the beautiful, depending on which perspective the person picks this one from. And that's why when you are doing that, you have to be very careful that in order to minimize contradiction, it's better you select one spokesperson. If you are lucky that the public get used to the figure, however ugly it is, it will be appreciated. But today you bring John talks, tomorrow you bring Claire is talking, the other day you bring James. Now you lose the consistency, you lose the, because we don't have the same accent, we don't have the same, now, but sometimes even associate a voice, that if you hear that voice, that something is being communicated. So we have to be very careful to make sure that we have one person talking. Then, apart from that, one person should talk, but a multiple of channels must be used. Don't say, me I've talked to the TV, I'm done. No way. The radios want your audios. The print they want your information, and volunteer information. Because already I gave you my information. Why did you choose yours? So you are speaking your language, not the language I speak. That's why it is very, very, very important. And the most important thing about this message, you must show control. For us, we call it command and control. It should be a message of hope. Don't say the disaster has happened. We have nothing to do. Hey, but you are put in that office to do something. At least you have to give hope that anyway, every effort is being done. The situation is now under control. Please, you can be rest assured we shall be on top of the game. Because people want hope. They don't want doom. People believe in mitigation. And as you communicate that hope, justify that, yes, it happened, but it didn't happen because you are negligent, even if you are. You must prove that the situation you are dealing with was so dire that it just bypassed you, but you had put all your effort to prevent it. But some of us say, you see, I think these people on the ground, they went to sleep. So if they went to sleep, who is supposed to supervise them? If you are the supervisor and you say, this person was negligent and actually this is undoable, then why are you a supervisor? Why did you put an incompetent person in the same place? Because you are the deploying person. So there must be mitigational ties on what you communicate. Control, but empathy must be in. And justify that it could have happened to anybody else. Not necessarily you only. Now, and as you talk, you must of necessity ensure that you take immediate action. Talk as you work. Because if you are talking and nothing is being done, then the people will say, now look at this one. What are you talking? You don't know what is going on. Even when the locusts were moving left and right, at least there was an attempt to stop them. Whether they would have stopped by themselves, but at least there was an attempt to stop them. Now, and of course, you have to keep the updates of your recovery. If you noticed in my talk, I ended by giving how many we had recovered so far. That means you are giving hope that you are not seated. You are also working. But you are talking of 7 people out of 224. Yes, it is small, but that is in a positive what? Direction. It's not like, well, we shall see what happens. When will you see? So there must be something tangible. And of course, as you do that, the first thing you have to do internally is to make sure the cause of the problem, the cause of the crisis is actually addressed. How? You can't believe that in a space of 1 day, we had moved over 20 staff from headquarters to Moroto. Sometimes when you sit back, you ask yourself, say, why did we have to wait for the escape to happen to send there more reinforcement? But that is to create an assurance that you are at the bottom of the what? The problem. The OC was immediately sent on leave and repressed. Because you are trying to assure the people around that no. Let's now realign ourselves and things will be all right. Because that's how you build confidence among the people to agree that what is happening is going on. Now, you must provide support. Because the neighboring community, what happened is that the army came in, the police came in, we had to dispatch food ration for all who were participating with us. Because they were now doing our work. There was some allowance already crafted to pay those people. So don't simply say the situation will normalize by itself. You must advise that there must be a facilitation to motivate recovery, to keep other stakeholders with you. Now, the biggest period is post-crisis evaluation and learning, because that one involves thorough inspection, reports. You write reports, reports are rejected, you write again, So, but you have to do that. Because if you don't do post-crisis evaluation and lessons learned, then it means you will be doing the same mistakes all over and over and over. So it's always important, document lessons learned and keep them for the next episode in case it happens. Now, then there is follow-up and communication with stakeholders. If you realize that when COVID came, the president called us as security government communicators and gave us an instruction that whether we had anything to say or nothing to say, we were supposed to appear at the media center and say something. Because people are in their houses, the ministers are not nowhere, nothing is going on. People are looking at TV. You cannot afford to feed them on what? On music and TikTok. That's why some of us even lost the voice because of speaking in the mask. But every day you would sleep concocting what to say. Some of us who had very few things to say, that's when now I became Omurimi Omurunji. Now I started communicating how to do agriculture while in quarantine. Just spice up. And it is that communication that took us for almost 6 months. And the country was what? Running. So you must, when crisis is there, do not allow vacuum. And any rumor that raises must be dispelled. Don't wait and say, this will pass. You know, there are some things which happen. And say, that one will go. And you ignore it. You solve it by ignoring it. But if it is crisis time, every statement must say, like that time, every press release I had, I think for 2 months, I was always talking about the Moroto escape. Their captures, the guns picked. Even right now, we have picked 13 guns, only one remains outside, and we have so far picked about 200 prisoners to be precise. Yes, 201. With the suspicion that some of those could have also died in other raids because they went back to raid. So, but we are still accountable. So you must make sure you keep communicating and rebuild trust. Now, for us, that time was one of the biggest challenges I faced. That from there, when I communicated and things became harder, I had to tell the Commissioner General, I say, sir, do you know where things have reached? This is as far as I can go. The next statement must come from you. Said, what? Said, yes. To come from you, we must go to Moroto. You cannot speak on your desk here. Said, you want me to die of COVID? Because the trouble was, we had the 267 prisoners diagnosed with COVID and 17 staff. So that panic, the staff were fearing, and at the time everybody thought that if you get COVID, you must die. So the panic was too much. Now, but I said, you know what? We humbly applied, I am with you, we must go to Moroto.
The Electoral Commission is conducting an identification and mapping exercise of persons with disabilities, PWDs, on the National Voters Register in preparation for the 2025-2026 general elections. Village council meetings will be held countrywide from 4th to 13th November 2024 to update the lists of PWDs in your village or cell. At each meeting, lists of identified PWDs will be compiled to ensure no one is left out. If you're a person with a disability, whether already on the National Voters Register or eligible but not yet registered, please participate in this important exercise. This message is from the Electoral Commission.